Samar Altaf. Today we will cover the stroke and ischemic stroke, its investigations, how to approach it, and how to manage it. In the next lecture, we will conclude. We will cover the all about the hemorrhagic stroke. Okay. So, what is the stroke? Stroke is defined as an episode of focal neurological brain, retina, spinal cord dysfunction that is lasting than less than 24 hours in duration or more than 24 hours, in which the patient CT and the MRI brain scan shows the feature consistent with the focal brain infarction or the hemorrhage. There are two types of the stroke. One is the ischemic stroke, which is 80% of all stroke. Another is the intracerebral hemorrhage, which is the 15% of the stroke. And less than 5% are subarachnoid hemorrhage. What are the risk factors for the stroke? We can divide the risk factors into modifiable and the unmodifiable risk factors. The modifiable, non-modifiable risk factors are obviously the age. We cannot modify the age, male gender, ethnicity, family history, and the prior history of the stroke. So these are the non-modifiable risk factors. And what are the modifiable risk factors? Means we can change these risk factors by our lifestyle modification and behavioral and the risk factors and the non-lifestyle factors. For example, smoking, diabetes, obesity, hyperlipidemia, alcohol. These are the modifiable risk factors. Modifiable lifestyle risk factors include cigarette smoking, consumption, and the drug abuse. Non-lifestyle risk factors include low socioeconomic status, arterial hypertension, dyslipidemia, heart diseases, hypercholesterolemia, carotid artery diseases. These are the cardiac causes of the ischemic stroke. High risk are arterial fibrillation, multiple mitral stenosis, and the recent acute myocardial infarction, infective endocarditis, non-valvular arterial fibrillation or dilated cardiomyopathies. These are the highly risk factors. And there may be the MI, the hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, arterial myxoma. These are also the risk factors for the stroke. We can divide the risk factors according to the CHATS score criteria, and this is the CHATS 2 basic criteria, means the congestive heart failure or cardiac failure. These are the patient has 1 point, hypertension has 1 point, age more than 75 years is 1 point, D for diabetes, it is also 1, and the prior stroke or the transient ischemic attack, it has the 2 points. So this is the congestive heart failure, hypertension, age has 2, and the diabetes and the prior stroke. Okay. Other risk factors are arterial hypertension, reduction in the systolic blood pressure of 10 to 12 mm of mercury and 5 to 6 mm of mercury diastolic associated with a 38% reduction in the stroke incidence. The type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol levels and the high lipid cholesterol levels, these are also the risk factors. These are the heredity and the risk factors like non-atherosclerotic vasculopathies, familial arterial myomas, hereditary cardiomyopathies, deficiency of protein C, S, and antithrombin free, inherited or metabolic disorder that can cause the stroke include the mitochondrial encephalopathy and homocystinuria. These are mostly the cases with the young age people, and these are the young age causes of the young age stroke. We have divided the brain according to the blood supply. This is the anterior circulation. This is the MCA artery, middle cerebral artery. This is the anterior cerebral artery. This is the circle of Willis. And this is the posterior circulation. The posterior circulation is supplied by These two basilar arteries combine to form the vertebral artery, and then vertebral artery is divided into the posterior cerebral arteries. Okay, this is the circle of Willis. This is internal carotid bilaterally. Okay, this is frontal lobe, temporal lobe, occipital lobe. Okay. So we have divided this is the middle cerebral artery which supply the lateral part of the hemisphere. This is the anterior cerebral artery which supplies the medial part, and this is the posterior cerebral artery. So how the stroke occur? Normal cerebral blood flow at rest in the normal adult brain is approximately 50 to 55 ml per 100 gram per minute. When the blood flow decreases to 18 ml per 100 gram per minute, the brain reaches a threshold for electrical failure. When the blood flow decreases to 8 ml, cell death can result. These thresholds mark the upper and the lower blood flow limits of the ischemic penumbra. What is the penumbra? This is the area, this is the part of the brain, or when there's a low blood supply. This can be reversible if the by the revascularization method, if we can start the treatment within the time period. This can be salvaged, but after this time limit, we cannot save this penumbra area. So this is how the pathophysiology, this is the area of penumbra which can be saved if the revascularization of the proper blood supply should be given within a time period. And this is the core, and this is oligemia, and how the process will occur. Look at this. This is the impairment of the cerebral function, and this is the core area. Within days to weeks, look, this is within the minute, the penumbra is very high, and we can survive, we can save it if we will properly revascularization, by proper revascularization methods, we can save this area. And as the time passes on, the scar will increase and this salvageable part will goes on decrease. We cannot survive it. We cannot save this area. Now in the days and weeks, there is a complete scar and there's no area of penumbra. Okay. The clinical syndromes of cerebral ischemia is transient ischemic attack. The transient ischemic attack is a temporary and non-marching neurological deficit of sudden onset attributed to the focal ischemia of the brain, retina, or cochlea and lasting less than 1 hour with free DWI MRI. So this is the transient attack, and the patient has sudden onset, and it is within the 24 hours. The patient has recovering the symptoms, and within the patient has on DWIMH, there is lasting for 1 hour. If you can go for the DWIMH and then we will repeat it, it will be clear out. This is the ABCD2 score of moderate to high risk factors. This is the score for which we need, so we select the patients to whom they are needing the admission, hospital admission. This is the ABCD2 criteria. The A for age, which is if it is more than 60 years, the score is 1. The blood pressure, systolic BP more than 140 and diastolic more than 90, it is again 1 point. Okay, and the clinical symptoms. Now clinical symptoms are divided into either patient has unilateral symptoms. If he has unilateral weakness or paraplegia, the score is 2. If there's speech impairment without weakness, only the speech, or aphasia, patient has aphasia without any weakness, the score is 1. And the duration of the symptoms, if it is more than 60 minutes, it is 2, and less than 60 minutes, the score is 1. Diabetes is also, the score one. So the need of admission is required when the score is more than 4. On more than 4 score, you must admit the patient for further workup. If it is less than 4, you just observe it and follow in the OPD. Okay. These are the certain syndromes, the carotid artery system syndromes. When there is a more middle cerebral artery occlusion, what happens in the middle cerebral artery occlusion? There's a motor and the sensory deficit. Middle cerebral artery involve the face more than the upper limb and less likely the lower limb. Face and upper limb are more common in our face more than the upper limb. Patient has homonymous hemianopia. There is a gaze preference. Gaze preference means that the eyes deviated toward the side of the lesion. There is a hemiplegia, contralateral hemiplegia, but the gaze preference will be toward the side of the lesion, not toward the side of the hemiplegia. Okay, there's a toward the side of the eyes will watch where is your lesion. Eyes didn't recognize where is the hemiplegia. Okay, so this is the, if the patient has dominant hemisphere involved, the patient has aphasia, or the patient has global aphasia if the complete MCA trunk or middle cerebral artery and SCA is involved, the patient has global aphasia. Okay, aphasia is again divided into if the patient has middle cerebral artery upper deviant or the lower deviant is involved. Upper deviant patient has Broca's and the lower deviant mostly cause the Wernicke's aphasia. If there is a non-dominant hemisphere is involved, the patient has hemi-neglect. He cannot recognize his contralateral body part. This is anterior cerebral artery occlusion. Okay. If the patient has anterior cerebral artery occlusion, he has hemiplegia of the lower limb and the urinary incontinence. Okay. The patient lower limb is mostly involved than the face and the upper limb. There is recurrence of the primitive reflexes like grasp, sucking reflexes. Patient has get apraxia. Other features are like psychiatric features, behavioral features, abulia, akinetic mutism, paratonia, rigidity, Gagin-Halton syndrome, because the bilateral frontal lobe is involved, so this patient has these features. If the carotid artery is involved, the patient is amaurosis fugax, is the sole feature that distinguishes the carotid artery syndrome from the middle cerebral artery stroke. Otherwise, the patient has same features like MCA, but only the amaurosis fugax is the one which differentiates it is the carotid artery syndrome. It is not the MCA infarction. Okay, what is the amaurosis fugax? This is a transient loss of the VN. The patient will say you something, a curtain like thing suddenly come in front of my eyes. Okay, this is the amaurosis fugax and this is what the seconds. The patient has in the carotid artery syndromes, the patient has alexia with agraphia. Alexia means unable to write. He cannot write. But agraphia, he can read. Alexia with agraphia or without agraphia may occur with left-sided angular gyrus involvement. Unable to read and unable to write. Gerstmann syndrome, what is the Gerstmann syndrome? Which consists of the 5 points. That is the finger achinosia, means he cannot recognize his finger, which finger he has. Acalculia, difficulty in calculation. Right and left disorientation, he cannot differentiate what is the right and what is the left. And also the agraphia, unable to read. So these are the 5 points: finger agnosia, acalculia, right-left disorientation, and agraphia. This may be seen with the dominant hemisphere and the parietal lesions. Other is the anosognosia. There is a denial of the hemipheresis. is most commonly associated with the right hemispheric strokes. Okay. Gerstmann syndrome was with the dominant hemisphere parietal lesion. Remember it. These are the parietal lobe lesions of dominant lobe. Okay. While agnosia is the right, which is the non-dominant part, non-dominant right hemispheric stroke. The non-dominant infarction may cause hemi-inattention, tactile extinction, fuel extension, anosognosia, apraxia, unable to recognize a subject. These are the parietal lobe functions. Impaired parasody, and acute confusional state and agitated delirious state. So the non-dominant hemisphere has a hemi-inattention. It cannot recognize his body part. The patient has tactile extension, visual extension, and anosognosia, unable to recognize the body parts. Okay. These are the features of the parietal lobe. Okay, the lacunar syndromes. These are very small, tiny infarctions. These occurs in the old age, and these are deep, involving the deep brain hemispheres. The anosognosia is a term I told you is the patient cannot recognize his own mental condition. He has no idea what happenings to him. Okay, this is the anosognosia. Apraxia means he cannot recognize he is not characterized by the loss of the ability to execute or carry out the orders, or carry out the when you ask the patient to carry out any target or any performance, he cannot he is unable to perform it. Okay. An affected individual is unable to ask him to cough or whistle or wink. When asked, he is unable to perform it. Okay. So this is the apraxia, and what is the anosognosia. Okay. These are the lacunar strokes. Lacunar stroke is further divided into the, if it is motor, pure motor hemiparesis, and the pure sensory strokes. Mostly the thalamus strokes are pure sensory, while the ataxic hemiparesis, the cerebellar strokes are ataxic hemiparesis. Dysarthria, the parietal lobe strokes are patient present with the dysarthria and the clumsy hand syndrome. Now, the posterior cerebral artery occlusion. When the dominant hemisphere can create the interesting phenomena of alexia, unable to read without agraphia. In the MCA stroke, we read the alexia with agraphia. In the PCA stroke, patient has alexia without agraphia. He has difficulty in writing but no difficulty in reading. The patient has bilateral occipital lobe damage, can lead to the occipital blindness with denial of the deficit. He is cortically blind, but he denies that I'm not blind, or has the confabulation. That is called the Anton syndrome. Another is more extensive bilateral PCA infarction affecting the posterior parietal lobe causes oculomotor apraxia, optic ataxia, and simultagnosia, a condition known as the Balint syndrome. Anton syndrome, the patient denies about his cortical blindness. The Balint syndrome, the patient has the, when there is a more extensive PCA infarction, the patient has parietal lobe involved, and the patient has oculomotor apraxia and optic ataxia, simultagnosia. This is known as the Balint syndrome. Okay. Simultagnosia is a rare neurological disorder characterized by inability of an individual to perceive more than one single object at a time. Okay, so these are the features of the Balint syndrome. Vertebrobasilar syndromes, the brainstem when the brainstem is involved, the patient has the crossed hemiplegia. The crossed one side the patient has cranial nerve palsy, and on the other side the patient has hemiplegia. This is called the cross hemiparesis. Disturb in the conscious level. The patient has lower motor cranial neuropathies. Cranial nerves are mostly present in the brainstem. So the patient has lower motor cranial neuropathy. Patient has diplopia, dysphagia, dysarthria, ataxia, and the Horner syndrome. These are the features of the brainstem infarction. Horner syndrome, ataxia, diplopia, dysphagia, dysarthria. Why? Because the brainstem is involved. All the main nerves are passing through it, and the cranial nerves, lower motor cranial nerve palsies. And the cross hemiplegia, when you you will be asked in the exam, you must know that the brainstem infarction are present with the cross hemiplegia and the altered sensorium. This is the top of the basilar syndrome, which is the characterized by visual, oculomotor, and the behavioral abnormalities, often without significant motor dysfunction. This is the posterior cerebral artery involvement. Top of the basilar means both the basilar arteries are involved. Okay, when both the basilar arteries are involved, the patient is in complete either you can say in the comatose state. The patient has visual, oculomotor, and the behavioral abnormalities, often without significant motor dysfunction. Or top of the basilar patient has locked-in syndrome as well. Means only the vertical eye movements are present while all the other features are like patient is in the comatose state. He cannot communicate other than the vertical eye movements. So how will we investigate it? The CT, brain, CT angiography, MRI, and the carotid Dopplers. This is the CT scan brain. Okay, why this is the CT scan? Because this is the bony window and these are the brain parenchyma. This is the frontal lobe, temporal lobe, and the occipital lobe. Okay, this side is showing the hyperdense MCA sign, which is present in the early acute MCA. Okay. The features of acute MCA are the hyperdense MCA sign, loss of the sulci and the gyra. Okay, you cannot differentiate the sulci and the gyra. You cannot differentiate, and the hyperdense MCA sign. This is the infarct involving the frontal and the parietal lobe. Okay, by in both this is the same, that involves the frontoparietal ischemic infarction. The right side is involved. Okay, sorry, this is the left side is MCA infarct. This is the anterior cerebral artery infarction. This is the ACA infarct. And this is the posterior cerebral artery stroke. Okay, posterior inferior cerebral artery infarction. This is the MRI brain. Now look, the bony window is not present. This is the MRI brain. This is T1 and this is T2. The T1 is similar to the CT scan, in which there is this gray matter. Look, this is the gray matter, this is the white matter. Okay, so in the T1 the gray matter is gray and the white matter is white. Okay, and the CSF is black. All of you understand it? The gray matter is gray, white matter is white, and the CSF is dark. This is same in the CT scan. The gray matter is gray. Look at this. This is the gray matter And now this is the white matter. This is the gray matter, and this is the white matter. The gray is gray and the white is white and the CSF is black. So the same in the MRI T1 weighted images. While in the T2 weighted images, it is totally different. The gray matter will be white, okay, and the white matter will be dark, black. The gray matter will be white and white matter will be black, and the CSF will be white. So this is the T2 weighted image. We can also perform the echocardiography to look for the other factors. Other are the extra and the intracranial Dopplers, the CT angiography, MRA, lipid profile, coagulation profile, ESR, homocysteine levels. So now how we will manage it? We have to assess the patient's airway, breathing, circulation, stabilize the patient as necessary, and complete the initial evaluation, monitoring the blood pressures. Immediate management is urgent CT scan of the brain within 60 minutes of the patient arrival. The central goal of the therapy in acute ischemic stroke is to preserve the tissue in the ischemic penumbra. We have to preserve this penumbra as soon as possible. As I told you, if we will delay this to preserve this area, we cannot survive it, and the patient as possible as we have to salvage this area. Oxygen management and supplemental oxygen, if it is less than 95%, in the small proportion of patients with a stroke who are relatively hypotensive, administer the IV fluid or vasopressors. Hypoglycemia, we have to correct the hypo and hyperglycemia, and further management is the blood pressure monitoring and the cerebral autoregulation of the stroke. But remember this, the management of the stroke is divided into, if the patient has the CVA and he present to you within the 3 to 4.5 hours, you have to immediately assess the airway, breathing, circulation. Number 2, the CT scan brain to rule out the IC bleed. Okay. And after that, immediately, if the patient has no other contraindication, then you have to go for the TPM. Do not waste time on other managements like go for the MRI or the extensive management or the workup. You have to immediately within 3 to 4.5, or if you have the facility of the TPA, we can go for the TPA, thrombofibrinolytic therapy or the Atiplase. Thrombolysis with IV TPA Atiplase should be considered in all patients with a definite disabling ischemic stroke who can be treated within 4.5 hours of the onset of vocal neurological symptoms that have been present for at least 30 minutes without significant improvement. Okay. If you have no contraindication, then we will give the TPA. And these are the inclusion and the exclusion criteria for the TPA. Inclusion criteria: diagnosis of ischemic stroke causing measurable neurological deficit, onset of symptoms less than 3 hours before beginning treatment, and age more than 18 years. This is the inclusion criteria. Diagnosis of ischemic stroke, onset less than 3 hours, and age more than 18 years. And this is the exclusion criteria: significant head trauma or prior stroke in previous 3 months, or the patient has symptoms suggestive of subarachnoid hemorrhage or IC bleed, intracranial hemorrhage, arterial puncture at the non-compressible sites within 7 days, intracranial neoplasm or AV malformation, recent intracranial or intraspinal surgery, elevated blood pressure more than 185 systolic and more than 110 diastolic. These all are the contraindications. Platelet less than 1 lakh. Okay. This is the inclusion criteria. This is the exclusion. Before TPA, we have to be very sure that what are the indications and what are the contraindications. We cannot give TPA to all patients. Other Methods are like intra-arterial thrombolysis requires specialized facilities and experienced neuroradiologists, limiting its widespread applicability. Moreover, the need to establish arterial assays increases the delay to treatment compared with the IV route. There are therefore studies in progressing investigating the benefits of arterial thrombolysis following an initial IV dose of the AT+. Okay, so IV thrombolysis is more better than the intra-arterial thrombolysis, but if you have the facility, you can go for up to 12 hours of the onset, we can go for the intra-arterial thrombolysis as well. If you have no facility for the TPA, then we will manage the blood pressures and we will start the SCART, okay, antiplatelet therapy. All acute stroke patients not already on antiplatelet agent should be given at least 160 milligram of aspirin immediately as a one-time loading dose. This is the level A indication. In patients treated with TPA, aspirin should be delayed until after 24 hours post thrombolysis. If the in these patients with who have given the TPA, delay the aspirin for 24 hours. Okay. Post thrombolysis scan has excluded the intracerebral hemorrhage. In patient already on aspirin prior to ischemic stroke or TIA, clopidogrel may be considered as an alternative. If the patient has a recent within the past 24 hour TIA or ischemic stroke, clopidogrel may be added to the aspirin for the first 21 to 90 days. The patient has TIA or minor ischemic stroke, then we have to give the dual therapy, Ascard plus clopidogrel for first 21 to 90 days. This is the level B criteria. Carotid revascularization, if the patient has carotid emboli, we have to go for the carotid and arterectomy should be performed by a surgeon with a known perioperative morbidity and mortality of less than 6%. Other measures are to prevent the secondary prevention, can manage the blood pressures, cholesterol levels, and that if the patient has diabetes, we have to manage the diabetes and hyperglycemia accordingly, and the physiotherapy, diet control. So these are the secondary prevention. Okay, so now we have completed the ischemic stroke. In the next lecture, we will complete the hemorrhagic stroke.